we're going to start off briefly and talk about a couple different things, specifically related to the ongoing situation in Israel-Palestine. Because this morning, I woke up and I did my daily routine and I listened to, NPR. And on NPR, I saw something that I've never seen before. Coverage that was actually attributing fault to Benjamin Netanyahu. Coverage that didn't say Palestinian-run Hamas-run health ministry, but the Palestinian health ministry. That coverage that actually showed that 40,000 Palestinians have been slaughtered over the course of the past 11 months. It was shocking. It was shocking. It almost recognized the humanity of Palestinians. I thought I was personally hallucinating for a second because I'd never seen such anti-Semitic vitriol from mainstream media. As a matter of fact, it would be considered anti-Semitic vitriol in mainstream media to do that sort of coverage literally like a month ago or maybe 2 months ago. So how the did this happen? How do we get here? How do we get here where mainstream media is literally 8 months too late to the goddamn game here? Netanyahu derailed a potential Gaza hostage deal in July, Israeli newspaper reports. Wow. Wow. Maybe fucking Kamala Harris and Joe Biden can finally see this reality as well. I don't know. Just kidding. They're too invested in lying at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu. Weird that it took a month to finally get here, but they got there nonetheless. Good. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in July effectively spiked a draft hostage and ceasefire deal by introducing a raft of a new 11th hour demands, according to a report by Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot, citing a document it obtained. Now, let me tell you something, okay? These guys, Ynet, not exactly a anti-Zionist institution. As far as Israeli newspapers goes, yeah, they're doing news coverage on the matter, as I've said time and time again. Not exactly anti-Zionist, okay? This isn't a local call. This isn't local call. This isn't 972 magazine. This isn't even Haaretz, okay? This is Yediot Ahronot. This is not a Israeli newspaper that is even remotely anti-Zionist. The report lends credence to charges often leveled at the prime minister, most notably by hostage families, of purposely prolonging the war and torpedoing deals for his political benefit. Far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition have pledged to bring down the government should he end the war. No, it's not because they killed enough babies to make CNN report the truth. Don't be delusional. It's because, and I told you this already, this is happening. It's because 3 out of the 6 hostages that were killed literally were named in the ceasefire proposal in the first round of hostage negotiations. They would have been with their families by now if Benjamin Netanyahu didn't just add new poison pills to the ceasefire negotiation. That's the only reason why there's so much goddamn internal pressure inside of Israel now that like American media even is saying enough. Okay, we have to report this adequately. This is why I said things are changing dramatically with these protests. This is why I said what I said. Do you understand? Because Western media does not fucking care about the humanity of Palestinians. They do not care about that shit at all, okay? Palestinians are nothing. They are collateral damage to Western media. They're nothing. But you know who is something? Israeli citizens, hostage families. And when hostage families, Benjamin Netanyahu's own fucking cabinet members, Benjamin Netanyahu's own defense minister, Yoav Gallant, and numerous other, and every single fucking Israeli newspaper is like, Benjamin Netanyahu, do the ceasefire deal. God damn it, enough is enough. American media, which normally, by the way, I don't expect this from New York Times, by the way. New York Times would probably not cover this because, like, in terms of ultra-Zionist creed, okay, bullshit, I would say New York Times is up there. CNN is a close second. New York Times is one of the worst, though, in terms of, like, objective or rather liberal, supposedly objective, supposedly liberal media. New York Times is probably one of the worst in its coverage, like, straight up. Okay, so New York Times is going to publish this conspiratorial claim without an ounce of skepticism or providing a single shred of evidence. Cool. Across the United States this spring, Iran also used social media to stoke student-organized protests against Israel's war in Gaza, with operatives providing financial assistance and imposing to students, according to American intelligence assessments. Oh my God. There you go. If U.S. intelligence has evidence of Iranian agents posing as students and organizing protests, can they name them? This is a very specific and explosive claim. Yeah. New York Times is literally just doing the exact opposite. Every other outlet is like, NPR is literally being like, yo, Benjamin Netanyahu fucked these deals up, huh? Benjamin Netanyahu sure seemingly does not want to do a ceasefire deal, you know? New York Times, on the other hand, Iran emerges as a top disinformation threat in the U.S. presidential presidential race. That's one of the top. Look at this. U.S. announces plan to counter Russian influence ahead of 2024 election. Iran emerges as a top disinformation agent. Come on, man. Maybe talk about the Israeli protest, dude. What's going on? It's crazy how far they have fallen off the map on this shit specifically. HasanAbi spiritual top disinformation threat. Yeah. I think the subtle but important difference is Israelis don't just want Bibi out. They want the truth. For so long, Israelis were told by the government that destroying Hamas would bring the hostages back, but destroying Hamas and bringing the hostages back are actually two very different things. So there's a couple things. You're not entirely wrong about that. Ultimately, Israelis don't give a shit what happens. Like, by and large, massive subsects of the Israeli society don't give a fuck about what happens to the Palestinians. They actually either A, want them all killed, B, want them, or even if they are all killed, it just doesn't like matter to them enough to like do something about it. And then there are obviously the pussy ass socialist to fucking older Ashkenazi Jewish population that does care a little bit. They're like kind of anti-war and they do protest. You got like the standing together group that has grown in size and that ideologically is like all the way from liberal Zionists to like anti-Zionist. It's comprised of like the largest force internally inside of Israel that is conducting anti-war protests that isn't just about retrieving the hostages. But of course, the largest force that you have seen so far are people who are directly, aligned with the hostage families. That is the mass organizing that has occurred in Israel. And of course, many of those people don't necessarily give a fuck about what happens in Palestine, what happens with the Palestinians, but they want their fucking friends and their family members back. That's something to consider. It's important. You need to understand what the actual motivation is here so you are not led astray. I'm not going to fucking lie to you and act like a lot of these guys care about Palestinians or anything like that. They don't. But it doesn't matter because this right now serves the exact same purpose. If you want a ceasefire, these guys want it too. Why do they want it? Because they want the fucking hostages returned. They want the hostages returned. And that's precisely what's going on here. Now, for months and months and months, I have been screaming from the fucking rooftops about the situation. It is obvious to me and anyone who actually sees the situation in front of them that it's not actually Hamas that's sullying the ceasefire negotiations. It's actually Benjamin Netanyahu, almost personally. Israeli hostage negotiators, former and current, have said Benjamin Netanyahu is sullying the hostage deal. Yoav Gallant has said, his own defense minister, who is literally another person that has war criminal charges in the ICC right now, an application for the arrest warrant of Yoav Gallant is literally about to come down in the next couple of days, probably by Friday. He has said Benjamin Netanyahu wants a military solution to Hamas. It's not going to happen. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari with the big ass ears that you know very well, the guy who went down to the tunnels and was like, remember that calendar? That's a terror calendar, which it turns out it was just a regular calendar. That guy has said there's no military solution to Hamas. Everyone fucking understands this. People are starting to come to that recognition even in Israeli society, especially when, you're supposed to be militarily dealing with Hamas, but all you have created for Israeli society is destruction of your economy. You have a shit ton of reservists that are up. You have thousands of dead soldiers, IDF soldiers. The amount of IDF casualties is akin to like fucking 12 years of occupying Lebanon at this point. It's like crazy the amount of fucking people that have died. The amount of IDF soldiers that have fucking gotten smoked by dudes who are 18 fucking years old wearing busted ass Adidas, running up to fucking Merkava tanks and just dropping a grenade and then piecing the fuck out back into a goddamn tunnel system. It is crazy. The incompetence is out of control. It is very obvious that you cannot deal with these people militarily. You can't do it. And every parent you kill, every child you orphan, most likely going to be either Hamas or whatever the fuck else comes from the ashes, okay? Even if you were to destroy Hamas, you cannot destroy people's interest in wanting to be free, okay? That's just a normal human basic necessity. Hasan glazing Hamas right now. Bibi is crazy, but you guys keep being surprised. Hasan glazing Hamas right now. Bitch, I'm not glazing Hamas. What I'm simply telling you is if you fucking kill people, yes, their orphans are going to be like, hey, the guys that killed my parents, the guys that blew up my school, I fucking hate them. I'm going to fight back against them. It is the most understandable thing. If that were to happen to you, my expectation would be for you to fight back as well. Ridiculous to assume that Palestinians are supposed to just sit there and get fucking murdered. You know what I mean? What a crazy expectation. Yeah, look at that. Hamas rebuilds forces in northern Gaza, recruits 3,000 fighters. New report report. Like, what did you think was going to happen? This happened in Afghanistan with the Taliban. Some random account posted.
Look at this guy.
Legendary Intifada monologue.
What shouldn't happen? Killing 260 people at a music festival. No, you're right, man. That just happened on its own because, like, bad guys wanted to do bad things. You're right. Do you think the Israeli state was just, like, peacefully coexisting? They didn't deserve it, you idiot. My goal is solutions. Your goal is the continuation of violence.
This is literally October 9, by the way. For those of you who don't know, that's from October 9. This is me talking back in October 9.
You want every single Palestinian to be executed ruthlessly in the streets. How do you think this happens? You think these people are just like, oh, we were violent because we want to be violent? Or do you think it's because you have entrapped them, you have bullied them, you have subjugated them? 2 million people live inside of Gaza. They're not even people in the eyes of Israelis. The average age is 18 years old, 57% unemployment. They can't even get concrete inside of Gaza so they can build water salination plants because 97% of their water is toxic. They're dying of mass starvation. You cannot push people into a corner their whole lives and not expect them to fight back at a certain point.
Y'all got it all figured out, huh? Well, I don't think we have it all figured out. Sorry, I'm just mad today. Bro's mad. Yeah, of course I'm mad. I don't think we have it all figured out, but I will say, again, in the eve of mainstream media, CNN, all these fucking cherished institutions of wonderful journalism finally catching up to the fucking reality on the ground in Israel, the reality on the ground in Doha, something that I've been screaming about for the past fucking 6 months at this point. I don't know. You know, maybe I do have some things figured out. Maybe I just have a different point of view. Maybe I look at the situation and analyze it with the actual recognition of the humanity of the Palestinians. Perhaps that might have something to do with my commentary being correct and everyone else being fucking incorrect. And when you're talking about 40,000 fucking dead people, like, and you're not mad about it, I don't know what to tell you, you know? Not 6 months. You've been screaming about this for years and I respect the fuck out of you for it. Yes, specifically in terms of Palestinian emancipation and many other issues that I cover on a regular basis. Of course, I've been talking about it for the past 10 fucking years nonstop. But in terms of like looking at the situation and being like, this is Benjamin Netanyahu fucking up the bag. This is Benjamin Netanyahu fucking up the negotiations. This is something that Americans can like look at and if they actually were to look at the other sources that are readily available and maybe apply a little bit of fucking logic to it, you'd be like, maybe the party that killed the principal negotiator on the Palestinian side is not exactly really interested in doing a fucking ceasefire. You know, I'm noticing a separation in the liberal Zionist crowd. Those here in the U.S. are mostly still exclusively blaming Hamas. Those I know from Israel are putting it more squarely on Bibi. Do you think liberal Zionists who use Western news will come around if more shit like this happens? Yes, they will, because liberal Zionists in the Western world are fucking sheep. How do you arrive at the position of liberal Zionism? You don't live in Israel. Maybe you've visited one fucking time, but many liberal Zionists have never even fucking gone to Israel. How do you get to that? How do you get to that conclusion? Social conditioning. How can you shake that out? More social conditioning in the opposite direction, in the direction of the truth. That's it. Also, Zionism is fascism, so liberal Zionism is an oxymoronic position anyway, and many liberal Zionists are like very progressive people otherwise, with the exception of Palestine. So of course, for them, you know, it's probably much easier for them to like shake themselves from this like idiotic fucking notion that this is sustainable. So who you voting for, Hasan, if you're so mad and figure it all out? Because Kamala says she's gonna do the same fucking thing. I know, chatter. I know, which is very frustrating, and I talk about it on a regular basis. Anyway,
the conversation is changing in regards to BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions movement in America. Partially because of progressive Muslims like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar.
Palestinians don't have to be saints.
This was Agitative Propaganda, the show, the short show that I had on the Young Turks. This is me talking to Mehdi Hasan, talking in 2019 about Islamophobia in the United States, talking about boycott, divestments, and sanctions, all that good stuff.
My life.
The conditions in which Palestinian people living in the West Bank are subject to these horrific conditions, horrific living conditions by the state of Israel, America's greatest ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, if you ask Republicans and even liberals.
Very much so. I mean, it's definitely shifting. Some would say this has been a pivotal moment in the debate over Israel-Palestine, definitely in my lifetime, definitely in my career of watching American politics and following American foreign policy on the Middle East. And it has come as a direct result. The reason Peter Boehner can go on CNN and talk in that way, and credit to Peter, good for him for doing that, is because Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar opened this conversation. And actually, in a way, they didn't even open it. It's because that they were attacked. Here's what's so amusing and ironic in this whole depressing, bleak situation.
Anyway, I've been there for years, okay? So when people say, you know, Hasan is anti-Palestine, it's pretty funny. Here's another one. This is from 2018, obviously. May 15, 2018, Israeli murders Palestinians, and we act like it's totally fine. It's not. I've been doing this shit for a minute and a half, okay? Some chatter asks why you look younger, lol, like it wasn't 5 years ago. Yeah, no. I've definitely aged in the past, I would say, 6 fucking years. Right here, this is in 2018. Of course, I have gotten older since 2018. That was 6 fucking years ago. To be fair, I don't even think I look that much older than this. But my point is, I mean, you guys have seen this. You guys have heard it. I'm sure you can pull some of my older fucking tweets about Benjamin Netanyahu sullying the ceasefire negotiation. There's a shit ton of tweets about me talking about the media refusing to recognize the truth on the ground in terms of who's fucking up the ceasefire negotiations. And now they're finally coming around to the reality. Now, will this be short-lived? Perhaps. Actually, I don't even think I look better than I do back then. Anyway, beyond the fact that like I've been up Western media's ass on obviously uncritically and unconditionally supporting propaganda that is pro-Israel, that outflanks the reality, that completely sidesteps like the wants and interests of like peace at the behest of like the American State Department and their interests in the region. It is a welcome change of pace in terms of like CNN and NPR finally offering a little bit of truth to the matter. Okay. Having said that, however, yesterday the Biden administration said we're gonna give a last take it or leave it style deal to Israel. Now, I looked at that and I judged it by what I have seen from the Biden administration thus far, and I said this take it or leave it deal is probably going to be whatever the fuck Israel puts on the table, and it's just basically saying to Hamas, take it or leave it. And all things considered, of course, Hamas has been taking it nonstop and have been leaving it nonstop. Palestinians have been getting fucking ruthlessly slaughtered in by Israeli hands using American arms for the past 11 months, about to be 12. So nothing has changed from the way that they analyze the situation, and seemingly nothing has changed from the way that the American government is analyzing the situation, which is of course insanely frustrating. Having said that, however, America took it one step further, and it seems they chose to do this thing, which is really fucking stupid. They chose to prosecute the leaders of Hamas. The Department of Justice is charging Hamas leaders in October 7 attack. I don't know who this is for. I'm sorry, this is funny. I can't take this seriously. Half of the people that they're charging are dead. There's like one guy remaining that they could even prosecute for this.
The Justice Department has charged multiple senior Hamas leaders in connection with the October 7th attack, while demonstrators face off with police in Israel demanding a ceasefire to bring the remaining hostages home. Marcus Moore is on the scene in Tel Aviv. Good morning, Marcus.
Well, George, good morning. The Department of Justice charging the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, for his alleged role in the deadly attacks and the kidnapping of American citizens here in Israel on October 7th. Attorney General Merrick Garland pointing to the terror group's killing of more than 1,200 people, including 40 Americans. The DOJ accused 6 top Hamas leaders, quote, for financing and directing a decades-long campaign to murder American citizens and endanger the security of the United States. At the same time, here in Israel, we've seen thousands of protesters back in the streets, really trying to up the pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to sign a ceasefire deal and bring home 97 hostages held by Hamas, and that includes 7 Americans. These protests have been intensified after Hamas executed 6 hostages on Saturday. Now, U.S. officials are still determined to get a ceasefire deal, saying that President Biden is personally involved in the negotiations. But one of the major obstacles is Israel's refusal to fully withdraw its troops.
Wow. Wait, what? Israel's refusal to withdraw troops is a major obstacle? Whoa, that's crazy. Shocking. Guys, color me surprised, okay? Look, I'm shocked. What? But I've been watching mainstream media for the past, if you've been only tuning in the MSM coverage of the ceasefire negotiations for the past 4 or 5 months and nothing else, you'd be shocked that they're only now recognizing that it was Benjamin Netanyahu that's been responsible for destroying the talks all along. Are you okay? I am. I'm the most okay I've been. What do you mean? Are you okay, Hasan? Are you okay? Is there a chance that Israel off the hostages is a false flag operation? Fuck Fuck no, dude. What are you talking about? No, there is 0% chance that Israel offed the hostages themselves. Why would they fucking ruin their own PR? Like, yeah, no, they definitely do the Hannibal Directive, and they have done it many times over, okay? They've killed a shit ton of the Israeli hostages, but they're not going to, at this point, when there's a ceasefire negotiation happening, directly go in to a tunnel and like shoot the fucking hostages themselves. No gain. Why would they, what would they benefit from doing that? They have complete gridlock, complete bedlam in Israel. They had a fucking mass strike. Everyone is directly holding Benjamin Netanyahu responsible for the deaths. Israel knows every time a hostage dies, that puts pressure on Israel, not Hamas. What more pressure could you put on Hamas, dude? What are you talking about? Look at Gaza. That's the pressure on Hamas. That's the pressure that was supposed to force Hamas's hand. What do you mean? It didn't work. It's been a year. You think people can't recognize that, especially when they are closer to the situation? Come on, dude. Walls are closing in on BB. Pod Johns have been discussing this before his speech in Congress. New York Times did an expose on full proper history on right-wing fascists, including 1993 assassination of an Israeli PM and direct ties to BB's current government, and now CNN and NPR. The tide must be shifting behind the scenes in the State Department. When you lost the libs, you are cooked, BB. No, the tide shift has always been there, okay? Virtually every fucking employee of the State Department knew exactly how Israel was going to retaliate. No, don't say copium. Don't say copium. There is two different mindsets within the State Department. You have ideologically minded zealots, okay, who think business as usual on Israel. Let him fucking pummel. Let him keep going. It'll be fine. Then you have the other people who are like a little bit more sane, who want the continuation of American imperialism, who look at the situation and go, yeah, we can't let Israel do this because it is destroying the rule-based international order, like it is, which never really existed, but like it is destroying the argument that we could even craft or conduct in the Western world to claim that we care about this sort of thing. It's done. No more American soft power. It's destabilizing the region far too much. It is destroying our fucking chances of like ever conducting any kind of the facade is being destroyed, right? Like we can never fucking stand on rule-based international order ever again if we continue giving Israel weapons, okay? It's destroying the illusion of the rule-based international order. So obviously, when there's a fucking genocide going on, the entirety of the third world is already aware of this, but now even the Western populations are becoming more and more aware of this reality, and the government is directly at odds with the citizens. Even if the citizens don't give a shit about it all that much, they still see it. This is, of course, going to be a major problem for American dominance. America also looks weak in this situation. Israel's supposed to be our attack dog. They can't continue this fucking bloodshed without our weapons. So of course, for a lot of people within the State Department who want to continue American imperialism, they're like, this is fucking crazy. Like, we can't do this. We need to put an end to this. So that's always existed. That's why a shit ton of State Department employees fucking quit very publicly, made bold declarations. Like, we're talking about dudes who are responsible for other genocides being like, well, this genocide is going to fuck up the bag for America. Okay. And they are right. So ultimately, that divergence have always existed within the American State Department, considering how much Israel fucking bullies the American agencies in general. If we were to look at the State Department, like, I would say one of the, like, there are obviously very pro-Israel people within the CIA, and then there are very anti-Israel people within the CIA as well, who are like, what the fuck? They keep spying on us. They keep doing whatever the fuck they want. How are you not going to do anything about this? Like, they keep fucking up our operations. It's more so a battle ideologically within the State Department of people who are unconditionally and unimaginably pro-Israel versus people who are like, yeah, I'm pro-Israel, but like, we also have American dominance to care to consider here. So that already exists within the State Department. Now, though, because the contradictions are so heightened and so glaring, so obvious, the hypocrisy is in full display, that it's getting to a point where the media, which always has these two different interests of, one, maintaining the shred of legitimacy that they desperately need to hold on to, which is why they sometimes will give you crumbs of real coverage on situations like this, and the other more powerful reason, which is doing the bidding of the American State Department and propagandizing whatever the American State Department's position, is at odds here, because you can't do both. You can't consistently lose massive amounts of people who no longer believe you have any integrity whatsoever in the broader population and still continue to be a successful communicator of American State Department positions. You just lose that. If you don't do both, if you don't play this like delicate balance, you're going to fuck it up. People are just not going to take you seriously. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to be like, I know you lied about this. That's the reason why I think, while it is in my opinion, a little too late. You have this sort of coverage coming out now.
From Gaza's border with Egypt, but a new draft of the U.S. bridging proposal is expected to be presented to all of the sides in the coming days. Rebecca.
And now it's been almost a year since Hamas took those hostages from their homes and lives. All right, Marcus, thank you.
Yeah, Netanyahu's doing a second press conference. Once again, I'm not going to cover it extensively, but here are some updates internationally in terms of global pressure. This is why I don't just cast aside the 30 weapons contracts that the United Kingdom government sanctioned out of 350. That's still very significant. That is a move in the opposite direction, the direction that they've always been moving towards. That is no longer unconditional pro-Israeli sentiment from the government. That is the government responding to public pressure. That's a huge fucking deal. Make no mistake. Judge the actions in front of you by not what you wish would happen, but by what has happened thus far. If you apply context to the situation, you will recognize that these are unique movements, unique moves that Western governments are making in a direction that they've never made before, at least in contemporary American and contemporary Western history. The German government is highly frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu's policy regarding the negotiations on the Gaza hostage and ceasefire deal and the fact that he does not prioritize the issue enough, a senior government official told me. German official. Why it matters. Germany's diplomatic and security support for Israel has been critical since October 7 attack. Germany blocked a series of anti-Israel initiatives in the European Union and UN institutions. The German government is very concerned about the murder of 6 hostages by Hamas. The government deputy spokesman Wolfgang Büchner said on Wednesday that the murder shows that the hostage deal is the most important thing. All other considerations should be pushed to the back seat. Everyone involved in negotiations should demonstrate maximum flexibility and be ready to compromise. Over 10 German citizens are still being held captive by Hamas in Gaza. Several family members of Carmel Gat, a hostage who has been murdered in captivity by Hamas, are German citizens. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock will arrive in Israel on Thursday and meet with the families of the German hostages. She's also expected to meet with Israel's foreign minister. The senior German official said that the frustration in Berlin with the Netanyahu government is increasing because the impression is that Netanyahu does not prioritize reaching a deal for the release of hostages and a ceasefire in Gaza over the continuation of the war against Hamas. According to the German official, this is in addition to a series of other measures that increase concern in Berlin, such as inflammatory statements and actions by ministers in the Israeli government. Why is this important? Because Germany, with the exception of a select few allies in the American government, is unconditionally the biggest dick riders of Israel. They love fascism in general. They're like fascism here, fascism there. We don't care. We love fascism. They are super pro-Israel for a couple different reasons. I've described it time and time again. One, because Israel is obviously killing their new enemy, not Jewish people, this time Muslim people. So that's really good. And number two, they get to talk about how, they've learned their lessons from the Holocaust. They didn't. And that it's actually Muslims that are the biggest anti-Semites, not the Germans, not the Nazis, right? So it's great. It's like a great opportunity for them to basically demonstrate a guilt transfer to the Arabs somehow. Do you think Israel being a critical counterintelligence threat to the U.S. contributes to our unwavering support? Amid bids to release Jonathan Pollard, I mean, guys, Jonathan Pollard is a great fucking example of this. This is why I'm saying that the CIA, there are people in the CIA who fucking hate Israel, okay, for understandable reasons. This is why I said there are people of two different minds here. You have the unconditional dick riders of Israel within the American State Department, and you have the people who are like, dude, what the fuck are we doing? The hilarity of Israel is, like, even during the fucking Russiagate shit, which Felix loves talking about, like, a big chunk of the foreign interference that we actually intercepted was coming directly from Israel. And then we were like, oops, maybe we shouldn't talk about this stuff all that much. You have to understand, Israel absolutely plays a role in the American elections in very obvious, publicly open ways, like AIPAC, Kufi, demonstrating the interests of some of the most far-right elements within Israeli society in terms of continuing the apartheid, in terms of continuing the genocide, and then also in more covert ways, like the bots and shit that you see every now and then. Didn't even Obama not fuck with Netanyahu? Yeah, I mean, Obama was one of the most like anti-Israel politicians in the highest office for sure, which is hilarious to say because ironically enough, Barack Obama gave Israel $38 billion on his way out, by the way. So it's pretty funny funny that like the standards are that fucking insane. And yes, doing the Iran denuclearization agreement literally was the biggest fuck you to Israel that America could ever do in terms of its foreign policy. That is precisely the reason why Republicans famously invited Benjamin Netanyahu to speak at the U.S. Congress. So yeah, that's like anti-Israel as you're gonna get. A guy who gave Israel $38 billion fucking dollars. And if you ask ultra Zionists or even Zionists in general, not liberal Zionists, but ultra Zionists and Zionists in general, they will literally fucking tell you Barack Obama is a Jew hater, like straight up, aside from a bunch of other anti-black slurs and maybe call him a Kenyan Muslim man. So, you know, but let's get back to this point here. Jeremy Scahill from Dropside News, formerly of The Intercept, talked to the breaking points about his latest investigative reporting. Here is what America is potentially doing.
Happy to be joined this morning by Jeremy Scahill, who, of course, alongside our own Ryan Grimm, is co-founder of Dropside News. Great to see you, Jeremy.
Good to see you.
Good to be back.
Yeah, of course. So you have some bombshell reporting about these ceasefire negotiations and really pointing the finger at, in a conclusive way, at Bibi Netanyahu for intentionally undermining a deal that he had already agreed to. I can put this up on the screen and you can elaborate here a bit more. But effectively, Hamas agreed to a three-phase deal that actually backed down on what was one of their key demands, that there be a permanent ceasefire. This was something that supposedly the Israelis had already agreed to. And yet after Hamas says, okay, yes, we accept, then Netanyahu, specifically enabled, as you point out, by the U.S., layers on a bunch of additional conditions intentionally met to undercut the achievement of a deal. You know, talk to us about the documents that you were able to gain access to and put this in a broader context for us.
I mean, the broad context is that for the past 10 plus months, the narrative from the United States and Israel has been that Hamas has been blocking a
My sister-in-law's brother is a Palestinian in Gaza who watches and loves you, especially your gaming. He was injured in an airstrike and has been watching the stream from the hospital, even though he's now missing an eye. I told him I would write in chat on his behalf. Can I pass on his message? Yes, of course. Why is everyone turning now? It seems like it's a coordinated effort. First of all, this is Dropside News, and this is literally, not only is this Dropside News, but also this is Jeremy Scahill. They've been fucking hitting this point over and over again for months at this point, including on this broadcast. So this is not new for them. What is new, however, is that the mainstream media is now catching up, playing catch up.
Ceasefire. And, that has not been true throughout this entire time. Certainly, Hamas and Israel had very different perspectives on what they wanted in any document that established a framework for a ceasefire. But it's been propaganda from the beginning to state that somehow unilaterally Hamas was sabotaging it. But let's fast forward to the very current situation. You have Kamala Harris anointed as the Democratic nominee for president in Chicago earlier in August, and you had AOC and others praising her for working tirelessly for a ceasefire, saying the White House was working around the clock for a ceasefire. And what they were talking about is that President Joe Biden in May announced that that he was going to present a framework for a ceasefire that had actually been presented by Israel. And he said, now the onus is on Hamas to accept this deal. And what that framework essentially said was that there would be 3 phases. And in the initial first 6-week phase, there would be a large exchange of captives, many of the civilians that are being held by Hamas inside of Gaza. There are also some that are classified as in a humanitarian category. One of those we understand was Hersh Goldberg Polin, the dual U.S.-Israeli national whose death in Gaza was announced on Sunday.
He said he beefs with you and Austin is his favorite and always makes him laugh. He loves Kai's curly tail. And he said Marat reminds him so much of his uncle who used to be a mechanic before the war. He says his favorite people emoji is sludge. And if he ever meets you who wants to play basketball, his name is Ayub. He's been a fan since 2020. God damn. Hopefully one day. Why didn't the dude say it himself, doubting the chatter? I don't know. Maybe because he's in fucking Gaza in the hospital currently. I don't know. That could be part of the reason, don't you think? Also, it's not that far-fetched. I directly talk to people in Gaza fairly frequently. So this might come as a surprise to some chatters, but there's probably people in Gaza right now watching. There's also Palestinians here that don't live in Gaza, but either A, live in the West Bank or live in diaspora that speak to their family members who are in Gaza on a daily basis. Anyway, let's continue.
By Israel. And so you had this framework. Hamas then looks at it. They gave some notes on it then, within the next 10 days, and they said that they wanted to be able to negotiate a permanent ceasefire in the first phase of the deal. Now, according to my sources in Hamas, they were told by the international mediators, Qatar and Egypt, this was a deal breaker for Israel and the United States. And so Hamas deliberated on that. The United Nations Security Council endorsed the so-called Biden framework. And by July 2nd, Hamas had actually backed off of what it was one of their most important demands and made what they thought was a really big concession by taking that language out of what they were insisting on. They then go back to the mediators, and the documents I have show that on July 2nd, Hamas formally informed both Egypt and Qatar, the two main mediators dealing with the United States and Israel, that they would accept the terms of the framework based on an American amendment. And Hamas sources told me that the Americans acknowledged that Hamas had accepted that framework, and they went back to Israel. And then Netanyahu bombards the process with a whole slew of new conditions, including an indefinite presence of Israeli troops in the Philadelphia corridor, which has been governed by agreements going back to 1979 and 2005 with Egypt and Israel. Israeli forces are not supposed to be in the Philadelphia corridor or controlling the Rafah crossing. And they also insisted that they would maintain troops in what's called the Netzarim corridor, which essentially splits Gaza in half. So Hamas said, no deal on this. We already agreed to something. And so what we've seen is Antony Blinken running over to Tel Aviv and traveling around the Middle East. And now what's happening is they've tried to say to Hamas, yeah, we know that you agreed to this, but now you have to accept parts of these other demands that you've made very clear you will not accept, which is an indefinite Israeli troop presence inside of Gaza.
Yeah, everything that Scale's talking about here, where's the sourcing on this? Brother, use your eyes. What's really funny about what you're saying here in terms of like where's the sourcing on this, which is at Dropside News, if you would like to, if you want to specifically go to the source, that Jeremy Scahill, the primary investigative reporter on the subject matter, is just basically reiterating on breaking points with Crystal and Sagar. But beyond that, if you're looking at like the actual sourcing, it's coming, one, directly from Hamas officials, and two, it is now also coming from Israeli newspapers like Yediot Ahronot's latest reporting that shows that it was Benjamin Netanyahu that was sullying the deal since July. Qatar said that too. Yeah, the person that conducted this investigative reporting is not just some random fucking dude. He is one of the most important and well-recognized, award-winning investigative reporters of our generation. One of the best journalists of our generation. A government source closely involved in Netanyahu's coalition, Benjamin Netanyahu, decided some weeks ago that he does not want a deal, and when it became possible, he got nervous, and did all he could to torpedo it. This is from Haaretz.com 7 hours ago. The dominoes are falling. Do you think that this is the first stage of Bibi's undoing? This is a lot to get caught red-handed with. Nothing will change unless American government, like people in the highest positions of power within the American government that currently are unconditionally pro-Israel, respond to public pressure and change course. This entire thing changes overnight with ease. That phone call has not come for 11 months at this point.
Moving back to the West
Meanwhile, here's what the State Department is still doing in a holding pattern.
Bank. There was a footage 2 days ago showing Israeli bulldozers targeting a group of journalists, including journalists working for TRT and Anadolu, while they were covering Israeli raid in Jenin. Do you have any comment on that? And generally, and do you have anything?
Aren't there sources where Bibi told Gallant in an argument about the deal that Biden backs him? So why is he opposing his demands? Biden is not opposing his demands. I heavily suspect that the whole, we are indicting, the American Department of Justice indicting Hamas officials 11 months after October 7 in the midst of Benjamin Netanyahu getting a shit ton of internal pressure is a deliberate way to try and move the conversation in a direction that they want to have, which is remember Hamas, remember October 7. It's not working, it's unsuccessful, but they're literally still openly showcasing that they are not interested in actually forcing Benjamin Netanyahu's hand at all. They are firing off on all cylinders.
This is a threat to Israel again.
And secondly, sir, more than 40,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Gaza, a majority of whom are civilians. And these numbers are from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, but they are backed up by the United States, by international organizations. Humanitarian conditions in Gaza have degraded so much that diseases like polio and hepatitis A are now spreading. We have seen countless children be orphaned. We have seen countless mothers lose their children. How much is too much, sir? At what point is it time to end this war?
Well, we'll end the war when we achieve our war goals of making sure that Hamas can't repeat such atrocities. But we're fighting this war in a just war with just means. In fact, with means that no other army has ever fought. No other army has taken the precaution.
I mean, he's right. No other army has dropped 5 atomic bombs on a densely populated civilian area that it is the belligerent occupier of. That's literally true. Historically speaking, no other army in world history has ever dumped 5 atomic bombs worth of munitions into an area that it is currently the belligerent occupier of. So he's not wrong. Whenever Benjamin Netanyahu says stuff, because it's such pure projection, or not 5 atomic bombs. The United States of America dropped 2 on civilian territory that it was not the belligerent occupier of.
That Israel has taken, sometimes at great risk, to make sure that we minimize the number of casualties. You talked about polio. We enabled now massive vaccination of polio. We want 90% of the Gazan people of Gaza vaccinated. I think 200,000 I think were vaccinated today. We put in 1 million tons of food, 1 million tons of aid, 700,000 tons of food. That's unheard of. We've taken...
He's like, we're fucking killing them, but sometimes we give them food too. Yeah, it's 11 months, man. It's 11 months of genocide. Of course. You know how bad, it's bad when the density of bombing is worse than Cambodia? Holy shit. Anyway, yeah, war criminal running the fucking war criminal show, the war crime show. Doesn't seem like he's going to change course, but why should he? Because the American war criminals could actually change his trajectory dramatically. Now, remember this, chat. I've been saying this for quite some time now. Blaming all of the evil here on Benjamin Netanyahu is the exit ramp. It is the liberal Zionist exit ramp, and it's been there as an exit ramp since October 10. America is so far removed from the reality and so uninterested in putting an end to this bloodshed that they won't even take that exit ramp when it is beneficial for them electorally. Remember this. When all is said and done, Benjamin Netanyahu will be remembered as a monster. History will write about him as a monster, a singular force of evil. But we who have witnessed these actions from the Israeli government know better. People will write in history books as though Benjamin Netanyahu, this corrupt tyrant, took over Israeli society and forced Israel's hand into achieving such unimaginably bloodthirsty goals. Straight up, it will be the exit ramp for those who unconditionally supported it to turn around and say, oh, it's just him. It's just Bibi. He's the one doing this, as they fucking championed it, as they either turned a blind eye to the atrocities or enabled it or directly supported it. Just remember that. What is shocking to me is that the American government hasn't even pulled that ripcord yet. At a time when there's an upcoming election, at a time when there is massively positive consequences in terms of like self-preservation, bloodless, cold, calculated electoral analysis. I'm not talking about the morality. I do not think these are moral people. I'm not talking about being anti-genocide on principle. These are people who do not care. That much is clear to me. I'm talking pure bloodless calculation for the upcoming election. It is crazy. Anyway,